Yo, welcome back to Weird Growth, the podcast where we explore the strange and unpredictable journeys that founders take while building the future. And if you want to stay one step ahead with exclusive insights, episode breakdowns, and curated resources from across the web, don't forget to subscribe to Ammo Marketing's monthly newsletter. There's a link in the description. This episode, we are joined from across the country by Scotty Allen from the Product Bus, who was recently in Perth, over from Melbourne, running workshops, founder coaching, and the incredible Startup Killers event with the team at Everest Engineering. Scotty, thanks so much for being on Weird Growth. Welcome.
Pleasure. It's great to be here.
Wonderful to have you, mate. Jack from Ammo set this up, and he's got to sit in on your session last week and says he played your brilliant card game and went deep on the philosophy that every founder needs to hear, which is to fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So I'm really excited to have a chat with you about that today.
Awesome.
Love what you do, and I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who are really keen to hear more about that philosophy. Let's jump in. For those who haven't met you, Scotty, how did the Product Bus begin?
No worries. So my little potted history is I grew up in the States. I am a recovering American. I've got my 30-year sobriety chip. My wife is Australian. So we met in LA, and she was very clear about not wanting to live in a country away from her family, and I didn't have those same feelings. So we ended up here, and I come from education. I was trained as a primary teacher originally many years ago, and fell really into the technology side of things by rocking up at my first school and being told that I was the computer coordinator. So you can imagine how long ago that was by the fact that it was called computer coordinator. Yeah. And yes, and it was in black and white and all that. And it was not something that had been a passion of mine, and it was handed to me, but I loved not just like the technology, but the transformative power of it in learning originally. There's nothing automatic about introducing technology that makes something better, but when it can really be a leverage to more just interesting approaches to solving problems, really. And so I had a pretty long career in education leadership in some big name private schools in Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, and I never wanted to be a school like the headmaster because I couldn't take myself seriously enough. And so I had the opportunity to step into an ed tech many years ago now as a subject matter expert, really. And then that turned into a product role. And from there, I have been a product leader or head of product in a number of different scale-up startups. And about 4 years ago, start of COVID, my job wrapped up, and I was not ready to get back on the startup scale-up hamster wheel because it is super exciting, but it's also exhausting. Incredible. And so I decided I was going to do my own thing, and I got involved with some early founder groups in Melbourne at that point because I'd been at the beginning, but not the very beginning. And so I'd never been a founder before. I felt like I needed to understand more of what was out there. And as I got talking to some of the founders that were in these groups, I realized how much they needed the smarts and skills that product leaders bring to killing ideas, basically, because a lot of the skills that we don't see the behind the scenes of the success stories of all the stuff that didn't work and all the strategies that are used to try and find the things that do. And I was working with a lot of these early founders spending their own money on things, thinking, who told you that they would buy this? Why are you investing your own? You sold your house to build this? Like, oh my gosh. So Product Bus was originally just me consulting and trying to work out what a fractional or virtual product manager would look like. And I think with my early clients, got a lot of good stuff done, but got way too in the weeds in trying to help them operationally. And in some stages, it was really like, we shouldn't even be in this jungle. So there's no point in me trying to help you navigate it. And it's evolved into more consulting, coaching programs that are targeted either at really early stage founders that either don't have an idea or don't have a validated idea, and we do that mostly through programs with accelerators and other universities, etc. And then our individual clients now are more people who have got some budget. They kind of know what they want to build, but they would like to de-risk it by working out more of who is going to buy it before they build, which is a step that a lot of people skip. So trying to help people not waste money, which actually is a lot harder than you would imagine.
You're known as the polite dream killer. Kind of alluded to that before. What do you think that really means?
I was given that title by a program manager in one of the accelerators that I work with. And I think it ultimately, and this goes right to the, don't fall in love with your product, don't fall in love with your product, fall in love with the problem, right? And I think it goes to the heart of being able to help people see through data and math and common sense that we don't have enough evidence yet to be as confident as you are. So a lot of what product managers or product leaders do is just ask why a lot. We're basically toddlers, right? Like, why is that? Where's the proof? And when you get down to the evidence of all the things that people think that they know, and what we do is help them see that most of that needs to go into the we think column, and that we actually have to find the evidence that we know. And so it is, but sometimes people just need that moment of like, I'm just going to pop the balloon a little bit to kind of try and save your life. Like, please don't waste money on this idea until you've got more evidence than you have right now.
So what does that look like in practice, helping founders to fall in love with the problem? Specifically, What sort of examples would you take them through?
No worries. So look, the thing that I think is so hard about this for founders, it's really easy to say what you should do when it's a blank slate. But most of these ideas start in the middle. They start with an idea that is a solution. What if I made this to help these people to do that? And so the danger is getting so focused on the thing that you want to build that you don't stop to understand if you actually really have nailed the problem that you are solving, and then worry about what the solution to that is, because validating the problem is actually takes more time than you think. Now, you can obviously build a quick prototype of something and put it in front of people to work out, are you my buyer? What would you pay, etc. But we're really bad at getting too invested in whatever that prototype is, because it should be, my analogy, it's like a travel raincoat. You buy it in case it rains, and then if it does, you throw it away because it's like it's now it's a mess, right? But it served its purpose. But we get too invested in whatever we build, and it's really hard to then realize, okay, you served your purpose. The answer is no. I'm going to throw you in the bin. So, from a practical sense, it's really all about. I'm a big fan of the Y Combinator problems we're solving idea, that we have to make sure that it is a frequent problem that is experienced by a lot of similar people, that it's super painful. And the bit where I think we do not spend enough time focusing and talking about early stage is there's a willingness to pay to solve this problem.
Right.
So there are a lot of things that will sit in the, like, everyone will agree, like, oh my gosh, yeah, that is such a pain. Somebody definitely needs to do something about that. And a great example of that is when you think, I come from digital, and when you think about the systems and software that we use at work, it's not going to be hard to find people complaining about those tools because everyone hates them, right?
Yeah,
they're
like
everyone
Excel,
hates
for
the system.
example.
Exactly. Or just like, whatever CRM or, project management tool that you have to use, you're made to use it. It's like our common enemy that we can all be angry at and not fight each other. And so everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, that thing is rubbish. Someone should make a new one. That's not a willingness to pay to replace that thing. And so often people will go on that or go on, some chats with people, and I think the biggest danger point, honestly, is it's when it's your own industry and you know it well and you know people in the industry well. So your ideas get a good reception because you've got relationships with people. But knowing how to build something and sell something to your industry is completely different.
Yeah.
It's completely different, and people can get very invested in a solution that they have no evidence that they often don't even know who the buyer would be. So that they have no evidence, they have no like pre-commitments. I think we need to start getting out there and just selling stuff earlier, even if it's just the idea. That's the only proof, really. Yep. What other proof is there of willingness to pay than people paying?
And you got a little bit of a cart and the horse problem there as well, where how do you sell something that doesn't exist yet, that you haven't built, really?
Sure, but I think when you think about the good old, I love the hair on fire analogy problem, that like, if often people are like, oh, we've got to educate the market, it's going to take this time. If your hair is on fire and you know it, then you have no other priorities, right? You're not going to kind of go, oh, I'm just going to repot that plant first before I put this out. You're going to be racing to whatever solution you can find to put it out. And so you're not then going to get picky choosy. If all that's there is, my laptop, I'm going to use my laptop to bash it out because it needs to go away, right?
Yeah.
Some of us don't have much to spare, right? So hair and fire is a big problem.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. And so I think that when you then think about what is the scrappiest, most manual, unscalable version of this service that you're going to be providing to people, and would they pay for that? Rather than, I think often what we do, and particularly with software, is we have this product-led, I'm going to make the Uber for cat litter, in our mind. And so we think the job is to go away and make it perfect and then launch it out on the internet and everyone will suddenly discover it. And that's not how those product-led successes actually were validated. They were validated in really manual, unscalable ways. So I think the answer to the, how do you sell something that doesn't exist? It's like, is there a version of this that I could do for you right now with a few different tools that you would see the value in paying for it because you don't have to do it or the result is better. And that can be, if you can't find that, the challenge then is, how do you actually demonstrate to people the value if you have to get investment or get a big sale to actually build your prototype? Are you really on the right track, and are you the right person to be solving that problem?
You're kind of battling against human nature in a way, because
totally.
We, especially entrepreneurial people and engineering, type people who love building cool shit. And that's the reason really that they're passionate about doing, creating something new. So, how do you help these founders slow down for their own good in a way, and really convince them that actually jumping to the solution so quickly is not the answer?
Look, it is, having done this for as long as I've done it now, I understand. I've never understood before, like, why scams and get-rich-quick schemes work. But I do now, because if someone's offering you a shortcut, or you think like, oh, I don't need to do that because I know this guy and we're going to sell this, it's really hard to take the steps that you might feel like this is too remedial. And also, particularly if you are a builder, that this isn't building, it's not fun, it's not what I want to do. And I think that one of the things that we've got to shift in our mindset in the early stages is, right now, our kind of token to entry into the space is our idea.
Right.
The reality is, most of those initial ideas are not going to work. Or they're not going to be the kind of commercial model that people think they are. And so it's like if you said, everyone come and we're going to grow plants, but then everyone turns up with a dead plant and they spend the entire time trying to rescue this dead plant that smells and is disintegrating, instead of actually working out what they want to plant, and planting a new seed. And so I think rather than saying, bring your idea, I mean, not that you can't, right? But bring your idea, but mostly I think we need to be focusing more on are you actually the right fit for solving this problem and, for entrepreneurship in general. So something that,
is that founder problem fit?
100%. Well, just founder like
person founder
lifestyle fit because so we did actually Swinburne University is one of our partners at Innovation Studio. There we design and co-deliver a lot of their workshops in the Innovation Studio, and we have a program called Initiate, which is just a 4-week incubator. You don't have to have an idea. It's really more like, what does this look like? And we did exercise yesterday that part of it was, if you're solving this type of problem and you need to sell whatever your solution is to this type of person, then for the first year or two, what is the things that you are going to actually have to do in order to make this work? And are you actually going to enjoy doing that and be good at it? Because, spoiler alert, the answer is not, I'm going to sit in my basement and write code for 2 years and then hope that somebody buys it. So if suddenly, they're like, oh, I'm going to have to spend like a year talking to human beings about this thing, and I really don't want to do that. Well, then like your idea doesn't mean anything, right? It's like it's about also like, why would you be the person to solve this if you don't want to talk to humans about it? Or, and this is common, particularly in that kind of university age. I mean, these programs are student, staff, alumni, but in the early stage, a lot of them are students. And when you look at who would we need to sell this to, now you need to go and talk to 10 of those. And if they're like, I wouldn't even know where to start to talk to one of those people, then you really got to pull back and work out, like, is this going to work? Like, are you the right person to do this, or is there something else? So, but it's easy to say, and people often get it in theory. They'll be like, yeah, and then they'll just keep doing exactly the same thing until it fails.
That's the hard, that's the hard thing, especially for technical, really talented people. Technically, it's a big shift to get out of the lab and go and talk to humans.
It is, but if I can challenge that a bit. Like, I think it's as equally difficult for the subject matter expert when they are, because a lot of times people are coming into this, mid to late career. Yep. There's a certain type of founder where they know their industry really well, but it's also been a really long time since they were actually on the tools, and they have a machine around them that helps them execute what they do. And so you can kind of jump into that and be like, I'm going to go to this conference and talk to these people, and then we're going to get a tech guy to somebody said to me a while ago, oh, my guy's coding by hand. And I was like, what do you mean? Is it a sweater? Like, I don't think you understand enough about this to be just like, it's highly unlikely that what you're going to get back is going to be what you think you're going to get, because not because the developer's not good, but because you just said coding by hand, right? So like, what is it? And, so I think it can work the other way as well, where you're like, oh yeah, we've got these people working on it. And then myself as a product leader, look at it and you go like, so this is not a thing. And I think most importantly, and this is where my focus always is if we wait until we've made the whole thing or made the first version of it to then see whether or not there's actually a viable commercial model here, we've really done things in the wrong order, because a lot of ideas can really be put to bed through a really simple calculator test.
The thing that scares me quite often is I have, early stage founders bring a pitch deck, where they're raising their seed round, and they're like, oh yeah, we're raising $500,000 to develop our MVP. Mm-hmm. And, talk about putting the cart before the horse. Scares the pants off me, because the MVP should be the pitch deck, basically. Like the validation that you've gone through to get to the point to build an MVP is actually where you should even start thinking about money.
The only people that can raise for a prototype are not making software. They are making, like, I'm an advisor for a medical device, for robot logistics, for things where there is it's research and it's planned and there is enough of a market understanding that we're going to have to put some money in to get one of these made to see if it works. But the amount of work that's still required to raise that kind of money is horrendous. Yeah. And so people that are, but I do think that we have, unfortunately, by creating this really beautiful, inclusive community, and I really saw that when I was in Perth, that, I went to the Morning Startup, and I can't remember the name of the place, but it was amazing. And there was actually good coffee there, which as a Melbourneite was like surprising.
Oh yeah. No, we love our coffee here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, because it's not everywhere in Australia you can go and get coffee that doesn't make you wish you were back in Melbourne. I think there's a danger, though, in that inclusivity and excitement of, hey, you're part of us, come and join in, that people can spend a lot of time and effort and even their own money on something that is never going to work, that we could put it on the whiteboard right now and work out it's never going to work. And they need to either dramatically pivot or do something else. And so it's that, but I think those are really hard conversations. And also from the point of view of our ecosystem, as somebody who does tell people you shouldn't be building this, it's really important stuff. It's a terrible upsell.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. I want to continue paying, your consulting fees to tell me that I should stop. How do you test? We spoke about hair on fire pain. How do you really test for that versus people just being polite?
Sure.
And you talked about, people paying, but before you got a product to pay for, what are some of the things you can do to really evaluate that?
Yeah. I think, again, it's all going to be talking to humans, right? So if that sounds bad, you just stop now. But I think partly it is about what you ask and who you ask. And again, assumptions, sometimes when we say assumptions, that sounds like a negative or a criticism, like you've made these assumptions. But we have to understand that our idea, whatever it is a hypothesis or a set of hypotheses, and that we have to work out how to test them. And often what we do is we don't break down the tests into small enough pieces that we can actually understand what data we've gotten back. So, one thing that always makes me a bit sick in the tummy when I see people that are like, we are launching. And often it is this thing that, we haven't shown anybody yet. We're launching it. And our expectation is that people are going to start giving us money for it. But because we haven't done the work beforehand to find out if they would pay, not even for our solution, but would you pay for a solution to this problem? They're so far along the track that to try and put all the toothpaste back in the tube and do it in the order that they should is really hard. And so I think if you break it down into validating the problem first, and your initial conversations are not about the solution at all. So what we do when we do validation for clients, we have a program called Pre-MVP. Product Bus does not do development because we have to be able to tell people not to. Yeah. But we do work with partners that will refer people to us, and they know that they may not come back. Right, because they're people that they might have the budget to do it, but they don't have enough evidence, and we are going to give them objective data on whether or not they've really hit the mark or not. And so the first conversations in validating the problem are you're not showing them anything. You're not saying, hey, I'm making so-and-so. Would you be interested in this? What do you think of these? This Figma, because then people are just going to kind of go, oh, I like that shade of purple. And particularly if you know them, which is often the case, then of course, all that you are really hearing is like, hey, mate, I'm really excited for you. That sounds great. Or if they're closer to you, they're just saying, I love you.
Yeah, no one wants to be an asshole to their friend. Yeah.
No. Well, no, and also I do think, even though I've been in Australia longer than I grew up in the States, but Australian culture is so nice and non-confrontational. And so I often say to my wife, who is Australian, she could be being run over by a steamroller and she would be like, oh, don't make a scene. We don't want to upset anybody. And I'm like,
yeah, it's probably totally the British. Okay. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. And so there is that as well. And I think in our community space, it's something that's a danger because you have people that are, let's face it, a lot of people, if they've decided to found something, it's, it can be because they've got a great idea. It can be because some major life event has happened. They've been made redundant, or, they couldn't keep doing their work anymore. And so you kind of come into these communities, and it's also the same vulnerability that leads people to join cults, right? Like it's
there's a cultism to it.
Well, because you get love bombed, right? By the enthusiasm of it, and then the thing that is.
But then you also have these kind of like figures, a small number of people who have made it as well, and
100%.
They're the leaders of that community, and you want to be like them.
Yeah, and you have a lot of people out there making promises about what they can do for you. Give us $20K and we'll give you an MVP in 12 weeks, which is a lie. By the way, it's a lie. You'll get something, but it's not going to be what you think it's going to be, right? And so that people, depending on where they surface in the community, they can be so vulnerable to just being set on a path, not being scammed. It's more that, not most ideas are not going to fit into a venture scalable funding model. Yep. Right. And that's something that people takes a long time. I said that actually at this uni thing yesterday, and one of the young people came up afterwards, and he was like, so when you said that, like, not all ideas like don't fit into a VC fundable unicorn model, like are there many that wouldn't? And I was like, almost all of them. Like, they're not. That's not a bad thing unless that's your only goal. But I don't think that sometimes we're not objective enough with people. We're not, and we look at all the success stories and hold them up, and don't hear or spend time unpacking all of the really hard setbacks that happened along the way, and all the pivots that they've made. I've worked in 2 unicorns before they were unicorns, and one at the time I was there was like nearly falling apart, and one was like on the way, but it was like really scrappy tech, and nobody was ever saying a unicorn. They were just like, oh my gosh, how are we going to keep going, right? And now if you spoke to those founders, they would give you a really honest story, but we don't spend the time to do that. We just go, oh wow, look at you, $3 billion valuation, etc., and don't realize, like, A, it was super hard, and B, a lot of them would tell you they wouldn't do it again.
That is very common. True. Jack mentioned that he played the card game at your event, the Crimes Founders,
the Startup Killers.
The Startup Killers game.
Yeah,
jeez, there's a lot of morbidity in this. Which crimes do you see the most often, and why are they so hard to avoid?
No worries. So Startup Killers is 12 like founder archetypes that they're extreme, so that you can kind of laugh at yourself but see yourself in it. And I think one of them is oh my gosh, I can't remember now. One of them is make believe, which is, I think, a really common thing where you just get too far ahead of yourself, right? And my analogy to that one is, like my sister. I'm really lucky. I grew up in the States, but my sister came over to Australia with Atlassian a number of years ago, and she has stayed in Australia. So amazing. Oh, wow. When we were younger, we ran a restaurant together, and it was really busy. I think the menu was too big. Really demanding, but it was fun. It was great. It kind of died eventually. Also, like, I was 9 and she was 6, and the restaurant was in our house, but it was very real to us, right? And I think that
kind of died eventually, probably because you didn't have a food license.
Just because we just started fighting, really. I think. Yeah, but but I think people can get so, like, I meet people and they're talking in the way that they're talking and what they're doing, like, they've rented an office, they're doing this, that, whatever. And initially you're like, oh wow, you must be really nailing it. And now, like, my only question always is, so who's paying for this already? And the number of times that you hear versions of that, obviously, a lot of people don't have the money to be a danger to themselves, to go rent an office, etc. But people are always further ahead than they are. And I think our community also encourages that, because we want to kind of like, whatever. And sorry, that's not very good for audio, is it?
But there's definitely this sort of, need for a successful facade for a lot of people to, justify the reason that they're going out and doing this.
Yes. And then what it turns into is a situation where a lot of the programs and businesses and things in this space actually rely on people continuing to work on ideas that have no to low chance of success.
Yeah.
And that's very confronting, right? Yeah. Because it is, and on one level, you might say, well, that's, I'm just providing this service to these people. They're adults. It's, it's their decision, and 100% it is. But I think when I look at a lot of programs that promise outcomes, like, you're going to have a validated idea in 10 weeks. And I'm like, that's an impossible promise, because there is no validation without invalidation. But we don't celebrate those things. I've talked to multiple people out of selling their home to fund the thing that they were doing. And those are huge wins that are never going to make a headline in Startup Daily.
There is no validation without invalidation. Can you dig into that a little bit more?
So, like, validation, if you're going to go through a process of really trying to work out, because what we're validating is not ourselves, right? It's not like our worth as a human being, which I think people often get mixed up, right? It is validating a commercial model. At the end of the day, unless you're doing a charity, you're trying to build some sort of for-profit business that is either going to be for growth by investment, growth by other means of finance, or there's this other crazy source of funding we don't talk about enough called customers. And
what are they?
What? Yes, that sounds boring. And so most things we know, like we validate by trying to do it in some way, right? And so a lot of the things that might even get funding and get on some sort of headline, ultimately don't work out because the commercial model wasn't there. And so there are times where obviously you can't work that out until you start selling. But you think about like a physical product, that sort of thing, the marketing of it, like the marketing of a product that has been made, a lot of it can be around the brand and the associations and the feeling and things that you have. And so, it's kind of Mad Men style stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
buy an emotion and, justify, rationalize later.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you look at like market research for like men's cologne, it's like, when you put on cologne, which of these words best describes the way that you want to feel? Mysterious, sensual, and then we build a brand accordingly. But we're talking about software, and particularly B2B, which is where I come from. That doesn't work. People will keep using. I was at the dentist the other day, and I looked at the software that he was using to look at my X-ray, and all the tools and commands are like Windows 3.1. I was like, that is so old school. And I actually had a chat to him about it. I think he thought I was the strangest person in the world, because I was like, not about the teeth. It's about this, thing at the top. And he was like, yeah, that just, everybody uses it. It just works. Like, why would you pay more? But people often will be like, oh, dentists use this really clunky, outdated piece of software, and so we're going to make a new one. And everyone would say, oh yeah, it's really outdated. But unless you can actually demonstrate that they are prepared to pay for a replacement, which means going through all the change of retraining people and redoing a lot of their workflow, then you've got no business building this thing. And so I think that is where, and that make-believe piece that because we started talking about the startup killers, and then I fell down a rabbit hole instead of a unicorn hole.
That's what we do on podcasts.
That's what we do. And it is that thing of people often feel like they know. I'll give you an example. I've got to be a little bit vague, obviously, but I worked with somebody a while ago who was in a highly specialized industry. And one of the things about product people is that, like, our tolerance of ambiguity for the details of how stuff works is pretty high. But I don't need to know everything about your industry to be able to work out where we are at in terms of market fit, commercialization, et cetera. But this was one where I was like, well, I really don't understand this, but I'm getting the feeling like you've gotten way ahead of yourself. And these people had come out of the industry, and there were only a few real players in it. And they had this confidence that they were going to be able to go back to one of the people that they knew and get a proof of concept funding, because and I, looking at the tech, was like, I don't think this is really there yet, guys. Like, it was very, and it was more, we're doing this on the basis that we know we're going to be able to get X amount of money from one of these people. And then when we dug into it and I pushed back a bit, they were like, oh, you just don't understand our industry. Come to a meeting. And so I went and met with one of the leaders of the small number of global companies that buy in this industry. And he was like, guys, great to see you. I don't get it. Why would we buy this? What value does this bring? And I was like, aha. And at the end, he was like, well, what, no one's using this yet? Like, we're not going to be first. You need to go and make this work with somebody else. And when you have like 3 to 5 global players that are your only potential clients for this, I was like, well, of course they don't want to be first. They don't have the ability to retrain or try and get a global workforce to use this new thing that may or may not work when you can't even really explain the value of it. And I think it's an extreme example. Now, those people have actually taken the L and gone away and done the work that they should have done beforehand to come to a clearer sort of solution. And they were able to commercialize some of the knowledge and things that they had in a really different way. But it wasn't a software play, but hard, right, to kind of, come to terms with. And but it is a thing where that's an example where a few conversations and a few outside voices could have helped you work that out and maybe actually have brought something to market that could have been embraced by one of those big conglomerates, because you understood the actual buying piece of it. And that was the case of so much subject matter knowledge, no understanding of how people buy software, and it's a damn shame. Like, because for everyone like that who does stick at it, there are people where, by the time you work it out, they've eaten their runway. Yeah. And I've worked with people who have really put their financial well-being on the line based on, putting too much stock in that kind of fluffy feedback that people give and not real evidence.
So we've talked a lot about invalidation and that side of things. Let's flip that. And so what are the signals or patterns you'd look for to tell you that a founder is truly onto something?
Ultimately, we're looking for a scalable commercial model, which means a scalable sales process and repeatable sales process. And so one of the dangers of this is people will say, oh, we're at scale, and what they mean is we have 2 customers, right? But you could have 20 customers and not be close to scale, because each one of those has been a custom sales process, a custom implementation. And that is often the way that software starts, right? It takes a while to get to some true kind of product-led piece. And so if you look at your 12 clients and see that, okay, they're all using our software, but it's different roles in the organizations that are using it, and they're using it for different things, then we don't have that repeatable sales piece that we could kind of go to someone else and say, oh, you're like our persona, so we pretty much know how to sell to you. So it's that repeatable process. And often then it is, and this is, I think, what people really push back against in the validation stage, is niching to find a specific buyer persona that where this can be repeatable to start. And often when we try to help people focus on that, they take it as, oh, you are limiting the potential of what I'm doing.
You're being a negative Nelly.
This could be for everyone, right? And so my thing always is like, before it can be for everyone, it has to be for someone. And we don't, when the things that are an overnight success, they hit the zeitgeist where everybody suddenly is talking about that thing. But that means that there has been a lot of work filling up a much smaller little niche to then bubble over. And so if we find people and they're all in different little tunnels, and we're having to kind of go separately to each one to message to them. We don't have a repeatable thing. We can't take our veterinarian client and say, hey, lawyers, this is going to be great for you, because they're like, I don't get it. Even if we know it's the same process. And so what I focus on, I had a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago who has spent a lot of time and money on something without kind of commercializing it. And they said, like, if you were the product leader, what would you do? And I was like, well, first of all, I would run away screaming because I don't want to do that job anymore, right? But I would turn off 95% of this and try and work out, okay, what's our best bet, one sellable feature right now? And because it's so confusing that anyone looking at it is going to be like, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know what it does, because we've tried to message to everybody in the universe that could use this product in some way. And so and people then really will be like, oh, are you saying it can only be good for so-and-so? And I'm saying, no, I'm saying you have no money. And so if you would like to make some money, it's going to be easier to do that with your best bet clients. And we could spend a month trying to work out, who do we think our best bet is? We think that these people, right, let's go full bore at them for 1 to 3 months, targeted advertising based on the stuff that we've seen that's worked. And let's get a really, really clear yes or no from this best bet, because we're not saying anything else. Yep. We're only saying, hey, veterinarians, this is for you. This is going to change the way that you clean cat teeth. Like, I don't know. And please don't try that at home. And so if it doesn't work, then we know what they were saying no to. No, I don't need a new solution for that. I'm not the right person. But it's really hard to switch off a lot of opportunities, because it just feels like, oh, we're failing. And look, of course you are. We fail all the time. Learning how to fail fast by smaller tests. That where when you find out that the answer is no, the world has not ended. It's actually a win.
You're actually one step closer to a clear validation of your
100%
that you need to solve.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that some of those people couldn't be your customers down the track, but if it means like it's not your best customer right now, and it's not just, hey, we've got one really good client in this industry, and if you can't sell it to anyone else in their industry, then there's no point going in and trying to sell it to someone else, because you haven't actually nailed it yet, right?
100%. As a marketing agency for tech startups and founders, that's what we spend a lot of our time doing, is saying marketing is going to be super hard for you. In fact, we don't recommend you working with us right now, because marketing is just throwing fuel on a fire, which is not getting you where you want it to go. And so the best clients that we work with are the ones that do have that very clear idea of exactly who their customers are. They're already paying for it. They just need more of them. And that's what marketing's able to do, is accelerate that process, rather than using marketing as the starting point, which is, it's the wrong way of going about it.
I mean, that is identical to our values. And I think there's also a level of privilege in being able to run a business like that. If you're starting out as a developer, as a marketing agency, and someone comes and they've got something that kind of sounds half-baked, but you're like, okay, well, you're going to pay me. Like, that person isn't doing anything wrong by trying to work on that thing. Obviously, if they make promises that they know they can't deliver on, they're doing the wrong thing. But it is something where you, as the founder, you have to take ownership of every step of this journey. You can never just kind of make a particular thing someone else's problem. The number one thing founders want to make someone else's problem is sales. Mm-hmm. And so, and that piece, I think, always has to be founder owned for quite a long time until it is that repeat sales process. And I've seen this quite a number of times in, you can reach that point where you get some investment because you're making enough money that it looks like, okay, we're at scale, but your sales process is still pretty custom, or it's very reliant on the founder. Suddenly you've got money and you go out and hire this sales team that, and there are salespeople who, with the right personality and the company credit card, could sell a nuclear reactor to somebody on with slides because they had a script, right? Because it's mainly about the clubs and golf we're playing. But then when you give them something complex, something that is customizable, or that there's compliance involved, you send them out and you don't have that proven sales playbook yet, and they're going to fail miserably, but it's going to take a long time to work that out. You're going to blame them and probably get another bunch of them, and then go, none of these sales guys work, before you realize, we don't know how to sell this.
I think it's the greatest hack and biggest superpower that founders have is being able to say that they're the founder during the sales process, because that gives you just a level of authenticity when you're speaking to a potential customer that can't be replicated by anybody else. And there's something magical about saying, this is the product that I created and this is a problem that I'm passionate about, when you're talking to a potential customer, that you can't do with with a sales team or through marketing. So I think people don't lean into that hard enough.
The first ed tech that I went to, was a family-owned company. The founder was the developer. They'd been like a Microsoft partner, and they had gotten an opportunity to build a solution in the education space that was adopted by a couple of state, departments and stuff. And it had grown really rapidly. But then when I came, they were at the point where they had to actually really start maintaining their customer relationships to avoid churn, and also break into new industries. And something like education is a space where your first clients are really, really hard to get, but then if it works, it can just kind of go like wildfire. And what that can mean is that you may not really understand your customers enough about how to then explain it to new markets. And the founder was one of those people who just said, up front, I just want to be in a cave writing code. And they had a business development manager and stuff. And what ended up happening was, I was like, you actually have to get out there, because he had an amazing skill at being able to hear the problems of customers and then really develop something that met those needs in a way that I've very rarely seen. And you might, you might feel a bit awkward. You might feel like it's not your strength, but you actually light up when you're talking to them because you are really interested in solving the problem. And in the time that I was there, we broke into a couple of new Hage territories, and also created a new revenue stream through just our training and support and things. And that married couple that owned it never took any equity, never gave any equity away, never took any funding, and they sold it last year for a life-changing amount of money. Beautiful. And it's all theirs, right? And it's that thing of, but part of the making of it was like, you've got this guy who's like, so, people that are like so smart at one thing, but then maybe can't cross the road unattended, and to be like, hey, you're actually good at this, and like, I'll make sure you don't get run over. Come with me. You talk to the people, and it was the making of the whole thing, realizing that he could do that, and that it's not his strength. It's not his. It doesn't give him joy, right? Mm-hmm. But that in order for the business to work, that he actually had to be prepared to do that, and I think that's a really great success story. No salesperson could have done what ultimately happened there, because he owned and understood the sales part of that customer relationship.
What's one piece of brutally honest or polite advice you could tell a founder who's working on an MVP or iterating early product?
I think have a look at the percentage of time that you are spending on building or networking versus talking to the people that you imagine are going to buy this product. And if that last piece of talking to your potential customer is not 75% of what you're doing, you're not spending time in the right place. Networking is great. Startup events are great. But if that's not your customer, then you actually have to go and find where they are and spend time with them to understand what they need.
Everything else is a piss in the wetsuit. Makes you feel warm and fuzzy, but doesn't do anything to help anybody.
I've never heard that before.
You could use it, Scotty. It's all yours.
Thank you. It's it is a real coming from education. It has really helped me help founders, because there are times where you see people that are not being honest with themselves, or they've gotten themselves in a real pickle, and you can only help them be the best version of themselves. You can't rescue them from themselves. You know, in education, unfortunately, when you get into leadership, you spend a lot of time learning horrible things that are happening in families and having to deal with them, and you want to bring every kid home and just look after them, and then you have to realize, like, that's not my job. My job is to help you get the right resources, and I cannot overfunction for you. Because I won't do my job properly. And that's the same thing I've had to relearn with this, because there are times where you meet people, and the thing that I find so fascinating is that people that are like about to spend $100K on building an app, when you say, look, we can do some market research for you, it's around the $5K mark, they're like, oh, that sounds so expensive. And so it's like, okay, go blow the $100K, and then if you want to try again, come back. I think it's human nature, really. We're just not really good at learning from other people's mistakes or advice.
We're getting to the end of the episode, mate. I've loved this chat, and I could chat to you for hours, but something I need to ask is show and tell, which we do on Weird Growth.
Yes.
Which is what tool, app, gadget, framework, whatever are you obsessed with at the moment that helps you in your life every day?
Gamma.
Do you
know Gamma?
I do not.
Gamma AI is, I think it's gamma.ai. It has been a real game changer for me, because it can take notes, PDFs, other voice notes, and turn it into a really quick presentation.
Awesome.
And with different styling, you can set up your own styling, etc.
We're talking about slides?
Yeah, it can slides, documents, that sort of thing, but it's kind of native slides. But you can also do documents, that sort of stuff. And so I can now just kind of do a really high level outline of a workshop that I want to run, and then put it in there and get my slides and a worksheet to edit. Obviously, I never will just take it. But the thing that is a blocker for me is that, like, I'm a amateur graphic designer, animator, etc. Like, I can do it, but it takes me too long, or I get too kind of focused on, why can't I move this one pixel to the left? And so, and having to come up with just like interesting ways to format things all the time becomes so hard. And in the same way that a lot of the LLMs, like I use Claude mainly, but I think where for me, my enemy is the blank page. Like I once I've got something to work with, I can get it done like that, but having to get started is like, oh. And so I'm now at the point where, like, most things that I do start with like a voice note to Claude, where it's so good. And because I can talk a lot faster than I can type. And then can turn into that as well. And just the speed, like you look at it at the end and it's like, this is my work. Like it is, you know, it's not something that just kind of came out of the magic of the internet, but it's about speed of doing things that shouldn't take up your time. Like if I've done the hard work to work out what needs to be in this slide deck or in this presentation, then having to make it look pretty or, you know, conceptualize it. The thing I really love about Gamma is that it's got 3 modes where you can say, preserve this. So I want you to use my exact text for this. So if I've already mapped out like a workshop or that sort of thing, I just make it pretty. Or it can do like a condense version of it. Or I can't remember, there's then like a generate version of it, like take my advice, but then you come up. Yeah. And so that has been the biggest game changer tool for me this year. My colleague introduced it to me and I message her at least every other week and be like, this has changed my life.
Thanks so much for sharing that. That's fantastic. We'll share that in the notes. That's so cool. Before we wrap up, what do you think we should call this episode? We always have a problem with figuring out like what's the 5 words we should use to describe what we spoke about. And I'm just going to start asking guests to do it for us.
No worries. My working title for everything is always Cheryl.
Okay.
I'm like, we can't decide what to name it yet. Let's not give it a name that might be the name. Let's give it a name we're obviously not going to use. Oh my gosh, I don't know. You definitely that kind of the validation, something around validation, validating. There's no validation without invalidation. I don't know.
Love it. Validate. Very good. Final plug, mate. Where can people learn more about you and the product bus, your workshops, or get involved with your programs?
Yeah, no worries. So I'm on LinkedIn, Scotty Allen with a bus. I should mention that the bus is a metaphor. We don't have an actual bus. So just to manage people's expectations, right? Like,
I was hoping a magic school bus kind of thing.
No. And people are like, oh, someday you'll have the bus. And I'm like, if we ever have a bus, please just shoot me into the sun because I will have lost it, right? Lost it. So yeah, me on LinkedIn, theproductbus.com. We have a podcast called the Bootstrap, Startups from Scratch, which is all early founder support. It's the podcast that I wish that I had found when I first started trying to work out this, founder thing. I think there's a lot more, just like this content now, there's a lot more of it now. A few years ago, it was so much more American.
Yeah, there's all the grind and the hustle and
hustle and your path to unicorn status in 5 easy steps. And I'm like, dude, I don't even have a donkey. Like, what are we talking about? Like, cause I was an English teacher, so math is like hate speech to me, right? And that kind of side of things. But yeah, Product Bus, LinkedIn,
and the podcast.
And the podcast.
How's it been?
We have some cohort programs that we run that are pretty inexpensive, that it's called Validate Express. We are about to announce a digital health specific one, but we run general ones, and it's like the whole goal is let's get a high level go, no go on your idea. And so it can be a great thing to bring that kind of thing that you can't kind of scratch that itch and then either work out if it's going to work or not, or finally put it to bed.
Great idea.
Yep.
What's it like being the guest rather than the host on a podcast?
It's awesome.
Good.
Yeah, it's awesome. I don't get to do it very often. And I mean, obviously, as you can tell, I don't have a lot of difficulty talking to people.
No.
But I know. But no, it's great.
Oh, thanks so much, mate. I've had a wonderful chat. And as I said, I could continue this conversation for hours, but really appreciate you being on Weird Growth, Scotty. It's been fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in to Weird Growth. Please do subscribe if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube. If you're just listening to this on audio, you can see Scotty's beautiful head on YouTube or on Spotify
Comically
as well.
Oversized, I would call it. But,
looks like you've been in the sun. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. That would be really, really kind. And because it helps other founders find the show. But until next time, I'm Cam Sinclair. This has been Scotty from the Product Bus on Weird Growth. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.